Hello and welcome back to the Agribusiness Academy podcast. Today we're delighted to be joined by Abhilash Thirupathy, co-founder of Goldfarm, a super interesting agri-tech startup based out of India. And once again, we're joined by Dr Vijayender Nalla, founder of Agribusiness Academy. First off, hello to you both.
Hi, thanks for inviting me over. This is Abhilash from Goldfarm here.
Very pleased to have you.
Hi, Tom. This is Vijayender. Thank you.
Vijay. Vijay, perhaps I could come to you first. You've invited Abhilash to join us today, and it'd be good to give a little bit of context as to kind of what makes them so exciting and why you wanted them to be a part of this podcast.
Sure, Tom. So basically, like as you know that we've been looking at a lot of agri-tech companies over the last 5-6 months, maybe 50 or more. So most of these agri-tech companies that we see are offering generic solutions, right? So if you ask them who your target segment is, then there is a generic answer. But when I spoke to Abhilash, and I was quite intrigued that they're focusing specifically on a value chain and trying to build solutions around it. And then I had a couple of discussions with him, and I felt that it's a very interesting case to let our audience understand how a very interesting business model could look like or could be built grounds up. So that's why I thought of talking to Abhilash on our podcast.
Perfect. So, and that's a great segue, I guess, into asking you, Abhilash. Could you tell us a little bit about the journey? And I know you have another co-founder in the business, so perhaps you could tell us about how you got started and a little bit about the solution.
Yeah, I think Vijayendra has been very kind. He's shared a lot of appreciation for what we're trying to do, but I think we have a long way to go. But still, thank you, Vijayendra, for that amazing introduction. And to give you a quick background about myself and the company, this company was co-founded about 6 years back in India. I mean, if you're familiar with India, particularly South India, we're headquartered in a tier 2 city called Coimbatore. So there are two co-founders. I'm one of them. My other co-founder is Karthic. We are both school classmates, so we know each other for the past 24 years. My previous startup into online healthcare was acquired in 2014 for 18 million by a Nasdaq listed firm called eBay. So this is my second startup. For my co-founder, it is his third startup, and his previous two startups have been into outsourced design and manufacture of precision components for the aviation industry. And between ourselves, we split the responsibilities in a way where I predominantly take care of finance, marketing, and investor relations, whereas my partner takes care of product, sales, process, and people. So that's how we split the responsibilities between ourselves. And to give you a quick one-line intro about Goldfarm, Goldfarm is basically an enterprise SaaS plus IoT platform for large agri corporates, particularly sugar mills. And we've been working with sugar mills for the past 5 years. So that's a quick introduction about Goldfarm.
Great. And could you tell us a little bit about the countries that you're currently active in, and how customers are responding to the solution? Because I know it's a bit of a change for them from the previous way of operating, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we are operating in South India. We are operating with one of the largest listed sugar mill players in India. So this sugar mill's name is EID Parry, part of the $5 billion Murugappa group. They have about 10 sugar mills with a combined crushing capacity running into several lakhs and spread across 5 states in India. The reception amongst sugar mills has been very interesting. So if you are able to look at the early movers among sugar mills, the innovators and the early movers, they really love our solution because we are talking about a solution which is going to help them improve their bottom line, right? So for an industry which runs on very thin margins, cyclical. They are trying to save every penny that can come by their way. And our kind of a solution, which is going to help them save money and improve profitability, is something that they love to hear about, right? And the fact that it's going to reduce their operational dependency a lot, and the fact that we have a product roadmap where we're going to keep adding features every year, which is going to build on the benefits that has accrued in the first year. I think the reception from them has been pretty strong.
So that's great, and perhaps you could help people understand the maybe the change in the way that people have operated. So the kind of the key differentiator of your solution versus maybe other solutions, if there are some, or in particular, kind of what the process is without Goldfarm's intervention.
So right now, our competitors are more international than national. So in India per se, we don't have a good benchmark at this point of time to call as a competitor. But I think we should be honest in admitting that our biggest competitor will be the mindset amongst our target customers, where they're used to a particular way of working. So the predominant way of working has been paper and pencil and a lot of telephone calls, right? So when we go and talk to them about the solution and how it can help them save money, they're all excited. But the moment you're talking about how to deploy the solution, the kind of training required, the kind of ownership required, and the fact that there should be a slight change in the culture predominantly, where they start thinking about efficiency. Now that's a real challenge, because believe it or not, all sugar mills in India are working their, they're working their ass off for just like 4 months in a year. So they are laying idle for almost 2/3 of their year, and they are doing all of their work in just 4 months. So it's kind of a lopsided activity pattern. Either they are very busy or they have nothing to do, right? So it's a very interesting rhythm, right? I mean, you don't see that regularly. We're all used to an urban culture where people work 10 months in a year or 11 months in a year, assuming that 1 month cumulative time aside for vacation. But this industry doesn't work that way. So one of our biggest challenges will be the existing mindset, where they get excited when they hear what we can do, but once it actually boils down to the behavioral changes required for the solution to succeed, it suddenly doesn't seem as exciting, at least in the first few months.
And Vijay, perhaps I could ask for some insight on you. That's kind of framed the value proposition from Goldfarm's perspective quite well, and I guess this mindset and adoption challenge certainly wouldn't be unique to Goldfarm within the sector.
Yeah, so no, indeed. So again, I really reviewed, because this was very insightful for me, the way they have been approaching the solution from a value chain perspective. So in a sense, their solution is targeted at a value chain, in this case, the sugar production value chain, right? So I tried and understood. I was trying to understand when Abhilash was speaking, and also prior to that in my homework, and then I felt that it's basically asset efficiency for the asset operators, and to the sugar mills that are either buying it for the farmers, or the farmers renting it for themselves. So that I think is the key value driver for Goldfarm. That's how I understood it, and then maybe Abhilash can correct me if there are more drivers to it which are very critical or differentiating for that matter.
I think within you kind of nailed it. I mean, it's basically an efficiency play. How can you do more with less, right? So what we are basically telling sugar mills is that you don't need so many equipment. You don't need such a large team to deliver the same results that you had experienced last year. So a smaller fleet, a smaller team means lesser payroll, lesser cost to the company. So which effectively reduces the cost of procurement of raw material, which directly influences the bottom line. So you kind of nailed it.
And just a follow-up to that is the beauty of focusing on a value chain is, and especially if you're targeting on the bottom line, which in this case they seem to be doing it, it's easy to add up other solutions. So, for example, financing the smallholder or marginal farmers in this case, or offering them some other solutions, whether it is inputs or other things, because you know the value chain very well, right? So, as a solution
Correct.
provider, you know the value chain very well. So that I think is something that many agri-tech entrepreneurs can learn from the approach of Goldfarms. I felt, and that's what we have been preaching in our agri-tech business models. Stuff. So in that sense,
I completely agree, Vijayendra. Completely agree. I mean, the kind of data that we'll be churning out in terms of the transactions at the farmer level, the transactions at the aggregate sugar mill level, that will be of interest to a lot of insurance companies as well as financial institutions, because at the end of the day, a predominant amount of fintech effort is around how you can enlarge your lending base by coming up with new and reliable ways to assess the credit score of existing and new segments, right? And I mean, at the very base of it will be the transaction history of a particular individual or a corporate. So our approach has been that you build a particular value proposition and you keep building layers on top of it so that you can unlock new value as the size of that data reaches a particular critical point beyond which it becomes valuable to a allied party such as a bank or a insurance company.
Thank you. Perhaps if I can move on and talk a little bit about the distribution strategy, could you? This is a major challenge for a lot of agri-tech companies. Could you maybe talk us through your core distribution strategy and perhaps even touching on the future and whether there are plans outside of India and how that might play into this as well?
So my previous company was a B2B business. I mean, based on my previous experience of building a B2B business, we would typically look at two broad segments of customers. So one is the innovators, the people who are the first to use any product or solution in a market. And the second category will be a combination of the early movers and the late movers. So so our strategy will be based on building a critical mass of these innovators, basically sugar mills who have an existing process, who have an affinity for technology, and who really value any product or service which will help them improve their efficiency. And once we build this critical mass of innovators who can act as our brand ambassadors, we then move on to the early movers. And by the time we build this critical mass of innovators, we also build efficient distribution channels like banks, insurance brokers, people who provide software solutions to sugar mills. Right? So there are established firms who already have a market share for the respective product or service that they are selling in respective geographies. So we have built a database of all of these service providers, and we are in the process of negotiating partnerships with these firms, whereby our product or service can be bundled along with the product that they're already selling to the sugar mill based on revenue sharing arrangements. Right. So we are in the process of building these partnerships, and this will be the key to ensuring that we are able to build traction very, very quickly with our target customer. I mean, we really cannot afford to go one-on-one with each sugar mill. I mean, that's highly inefficient and is going to be time consuming. So we are in the process of building these distribution channels through existing partners who have a critical audience of sugar mills in respective geographies across sectors. We have about 6 to 9 months away before we actually get to know which channel works best. We are in the process of building these channels. That's what I say.
Right. I think that's a great strategy because again, understanding the difficulties of selling is kind of very important. And the agriculture industry works predominantly on relationships. So it's very difficult to build relationships, but at the same time it's difficult. So which also means that it gives you an advantage if you manage to build them. So innovators, I don't know whether there are enough innovators in this sector. Um, it's an area where we would expect as innovative solution providers to have more of them. But I really like the strategy. And even the distribution channel partnerships are not very easy to build, but that's the only thing that would work, I guess, right? In a B2B model. The
Yeah,
partnerships.
absolutely. And one-on-one selling and trying to build a relationship is going to be a time-consuming exercise. We need an efficient and effective distribution channel built on revenue share arrangements to ensure that we're able to get a critical mass of customers to break even as quickly as possible.
I think the bundling model, which is one of the strategy that we propose as a good distribution strategy, like several solutions bundling up, even if they would be starter solutions, several solutions bundling up is a good strategy as well, as opposed to partnerships. Again, channel partnerships are very difficult to build. So I'm sure you already experienced that, right? So it's very difficult to
Difficult to build, it's more difficult to execute.
Sorry?
Difficult to build, even doubly more difficult to execute and engage. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to really ensure that a partnership works in India, given that, most people in India think relatively short term. So it's a fairly challenging exercise.
Right. But that's the way to go, because if you are going direct, it's not going to work either. Because established businesses, and in your case, they are like maybe 50-year-old businesses, 30-year-old businesses, 100-year-old businesses.
100-year-old businesses.
Yes. So it's a good strategy. I would recommend you to pursue that with relentlessly. At the same time, be prepared for a long gestation period. Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Agreed.
And perhaps I could ask you both, and how important are these partnerships in terms of expanding beyond India? And this is obviously a pertinent question for Goldfarm, but also for any kind of solution in the country, or anyone trying to expand outside of their own country. I guess is it partnerships that make that move a lot easier?
I would say undoubtedly. Without doubt, it's going to be the model in India as well as abroad, because I think fundamentally the farming sector has got similarities, which is pretty uncanny. I was at this meeting with farmers in a different geography, and in fact, I was meeting farmers who, in their personal capacity, owned land in the multitudes of hundreds of acres. And while their attire had changed, while the setting of the meeting was different, I felt fundamentally that at their heart, they had the same level of skepticism that I would encounter from an Indian farmer who owns 2 acres of land. Again, it was not very different. It was like, the thought process when he's looking at me is like, what are you trying to sell me? Okay, how are you different from the guy that I met last week? Everybody is out to sell me some kind of software which is promising me a lot of benefits in the name of technology. But how are you really going to help me make more money? Right? So these kind of questions are not easy to answer in a credible fashion. So partnerships are very, very key to ensuring that we are able to distribute our product both in India as well as internationally. I have absolutely no doubts about that.
No, yeah. So that's one of the components, right, Tom, that we kind of address. Like in every like at the end of it, you are just a small component of the value chain. No matter how valuable your solution is,
yes,
a small component of the value chain.
Such a big ecosystem. Yeah.
Right. So if you have not built a culture of building partnerships in your organization, you remain a non-active player in the value chain, but also you you possibly won't have the opportunity to play in the value chain. So I would say that if you don't have a culture, I mean, at a strategic level, at a founder level, a culture to build partnerships, then I think scaling would be difficult. You might try and buy some partnerships if you are funded and at the early phases, if you have some money, but I would say that the partnerships have to be strategic. They should be, as Abhilash has said, that your partner should be able to explain to those people what is the value of the Goldfarm solution to them, right? So it cannot be just done by anyone. It has to be a strategic partnership. They need to understand what it is, right?
So that covers three of our business model pillars quite well. And perhaps I could just ask for your thoughts on the fourth pillar, Abhilash. We look at sustainability elements as a key in any business model that we review, and kind of any that we help create. Could you take us through the sustainability elements embedded within Goldfarm's value proposition and the product, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think the strongest way to define sustainability is how we are able to do more with less resources, thereby, I mean, ensuring that our dependence on incremental resources is reduced. And I think our business model, which is going to help the ecosystem attain the same results, or in fact better results, with less people, with less assets, is definitely a good step towards ensuring that the business is sustainable. But in the long run, I think the improved penetration of mechanization, not only in terms of number of farmers who are accessing mechanization, but also the wide variety of implements and equipment available to farmers for mechanization, agronomic practices being built into the process to ensure that these interventions happen at the right time, is going to go a long way in improving outcomes for farmers without any incremental requirement of natural resources, and probably less. Okay, it's a long-term play, and it's all going to ensure that farming as it is sustainable, corporate farming is profitable. Right? So that's how I view sustainability, and we think that Goldfarm is a step in the right direction.
And just to add to that, Tom, I think, I mean, if I again, one of the things that we prescribe at Agribusiness Academy business model framework is the sustainability has to be connected to the value driver. While there is something like a general sustainability things that you might carry out, but I mean, if I look at your key value driver, which is you can put it in two dimensions, right? One dimension is asset efficiency for the equipment owners or for the sugar mills, but at the same time, you are also enhancing the access of mechanization to the smallholder farmers or these farmers, right? So if you look at it that way, then one of the biggest themes in the global agriculture is inclusive food chains, right? So inclusive value chains, which means that smallholder farmers or farmers that are less sophisticated become part of the global value chain, or have a say in the value chain, or get access to all the technology and stuff like that. So in essence, your solution is possibly enabling that sort of inclusiveness. That is how I look at it. And of course, efficiency and all those elements are there, but I think the bigger picture of that efficiency is, I would say, inclusiveness in inclusiveness of growers into the value chain, I would say.
Agreed. Point well taken.
Great. So that kind of concludes where we like to look at the business model elements within the podcast. Perhaps I could just ask you a few more questions about Goldfarm. So could you tell us a little bit about what 2019 holds for you? So maybe ambitions that you've got and or exciting things that are coming up.
I think 2019 will be a breakout year for Goldfarm, primarily because it's going to be a year where our product is going to kind of complete its initial evolution for the target audience. And it's also going to be a year where we're going to be able to look at international acceptance for this product. So these are two key things that we expect to happen with this product in 2019, and it's going to set the base for very, very explosive growth in the next couple of years. We expect to have a relatively flat year because we're going to really focus on product building, customer acceptance, key opinion leaders, and acceptance in international markets. I mean, that's going to be the focus for this year. And this is going to really set the tone for what's going to come after that.
Right. And Vijay, but is this something that you see typically in agri-tech businesses? This kind of almost consolidating and getting everything in place before really taking off as a business and a solution.
So I would like that more businesses understand the dynamics and understand the realities of working in an agri value chain, and especially I think Abhilash, I have to really congratulate him for the clarity he has built. So I would think that, and we have experienced that, understanding the sector ourselves, isn't it, Tom? So we know that it is going to take time. You need to build the product, continue to build the product, and continue to build the partnership. So it's not like, okay, you build the product and then you expect the market to uptake it. I think it has to go in parallel. As Abhilash possibly realizes that, and I spoke to Karthik as well. So they both realize that it is going to be a long journey in terms of market establishment. But one of the beautiful things that they will have if they crack through, and which I think they will, is they will have a longer business relationships with their clients. That is what many agri-tech businesses would miss, I guess, right? So either the solutions are given away, they are kind of premium sort of models, or they're given away on on very loose terms, I would say, right? So when you give away on loose terms, or when you acquire a customer on a loose terms, then somebody else can do it better, over time, right? So so when Goldfarms would crack through that inertia, I would say that their client relationships would be longer, and the revenue growth would be more stable, and client retention would be higher. And so that's the beauty of going through that phase. It's a great question. While investors would like you to do it differently, but I think the supply chains are what they are, and we need to respect them, I guess, right?
And I guess that comes from having experienced founders as well, people that have been through it and kind of know how to build businesses well, like Abhilash and Karthik, obviously.
Well, yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, they would know the nuances of what would work, what wouldn't work very quickly. But more than that, I think the passion to understand, like that, okay, going after the problem, I think is more important than going after scale. I would say that scale should follow, and a problem should be solved and scale should follow is the principle that I have thought for myself. So, I think it's more about how connected you are to the problem. It all boils down to that. I mean, we see that with Sys's solution as well, isn't it? So even first-time founders get it right, bottom up, right? Sometimes if they connect to the problem on there is. So it's it's all about the entrepreneur's connection to the problem, I guess.
Abhilash, I think we might have interrupted you a little bit there. Did you want to add something more, or you're
No, Vijayendra is pretty much summed it up very, very well.
okay? Yeah, he's good at
I
that,
should
right?
probably let him talk first.
But perhaps I could ask you about talent within Goldfarm. So I don't, unless I missed it, maybe you haven't really told us how many people are working for Goldfarm at the moment. So maybe you could give everyone a clear picture of that, and then tell us a little bit about the talent strategy for building your team kind of nationally and internationally, and as you scale.
So we've always been a lean team. So right now we are about a team of about 15 people working on this solution. I mean, it makes sense from a product perspective. The solution to sales is not throwing more salespeople at the problem, but trying to ensure that we have a good product and a good distribution channel in place so that the product can sell for itself. We've never had a challenge in building a good team, but we've had a challenge, and I foresee a challenge in building a team to scale rapidly. Building a product and getting initial traction is very different from rapid early traction. So you really need a very different kind of mindset for these two things. But I still feel that given the fact that both the co-founders have built businesses from 0 to 100 members before, and the fact that agri-tech is really becoming a buzzword today, and the fact that we, without any outward effort, we do keep getting a lot of references from people who are really passionate about agriculture and who want to do something beyond what they quote unquote think is very ordinary. It is going to be a challenge, but it's definitely going to be a surmountable challenge, is what we feel. And India, being India, I mean, we do have a surfeit of people. It's debatable about how many of them are going to be really employable. I mean, it's been a good experience so far. We've not had an insurmountable challenge in building a team so far.
Great, that's great to hear. And then, so Vijay, perhaps you could give some insight, because I know you've built teams in India and helped build teams in India. So,
I think again, the partnership approach and having a clarity that we could end up having problems, having a clear focus that we understand the value chain better, we understand the partners better than focusing too much on sales or on technology only. I think these are all very interesting features that I saw in Goldfarm's kind of approach. So the more strategic your partners are, the lesser the in-house capabilities you would need, right? So it's as simple as that. So if you don't have to go from 10 to 100 or 15 to 100, you don't have to go there in that direction, right? But how do you get most out of the 15 people, or if you scale to 30 people, how do you get them to do more than what they would otherwise do? I think is the most important challenge that founders of agri-tech companies have to focus on, because getting good talent, great talent is going to be difficult in the short term. It is difficult. I mean, we work with talent in India and several other countries, so it is not going to be easy. So one of the approaches agri-tech companies, founders, especially ambitious founders like Goldfarm, can look at is, okay, how do we make the most out of these 15 guys? How do we train them on different skills? Like, for example, they might be hired for technology, but if there is a client meeting or potential client meeting, they should be able to handle it the way Abhilash or Karthik is able to handle it, right? So those are some of the areas that founders would do well to focus on. It's not about the numbers, in my point of
view. So that's all our questions for you, Abhilash, and we thank you for your time and your your very open and honest answers. It gives a lot of learning opportunity for everyone listening, and and Vijay and I, as we continue to explore new and exciting businesses in this space. Vijay, any further questions from you?
I think we can. No, I'm quite fine. I'm very happy that Abhilash gave us time.
Oh, well, maybe
Sure.
one last thing to ask you, Abhilash, is where's the best place to find you? So is goldfarm.in, is that the website?
Goldfarm.in is our website, but it needs to be updated. So I think there'll be a big difference between what we're discussing and what you see there.
Yeah, that's the 2019 project.
Yeah.
So the best place is then the podcast, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciated the passion with which Vijayendra was, following up with me. I mean, the way he spoke, his outlook was very transparent, and that's the reason I was motivated to, participate in this exercise. I hope it's of some use. I'll be glad to take up any follow-on questions if need be. I would love to stay in touch. And thank you for giving me this opportunity.